Revenge with Karen. I knew something was off when the office smelled too clean. Not Janet from facilities lit a lavender candle again clean. I mean sterile, like a hospital that lost its soul. The kind of clean that warns you, someone wiped more than dust this morning. I was halfway through the lobby with my oat milk latte, trying not to trip in my kitten heels, when I saw the new cleaner. Older guy, gray beard, quiet. Never seen him before. He looked up from his mop, caught my eye and said, flat as black coffee, "Ma'am, they moved your laptop into the conference room. Don't go in yet, that was it. No context, no emotion. Just a warning wrapped in bleach." I froze. My body kept walking like it hadn't heard him, but my brain stayed behind in the hallway. Something about the way he said it, the cadence, the pause, snapped every nerve in my spine to attention. Adjusted the grip on my latte and veered off down the side corridor like I'd forgotten something at the printer. Which, to be fair, was a lie I told myself often. I crept up to the frosted glass of conference room B. That's when my stomach did a swan dive into my shoes. There she was, Aubrey, the VP's daughter. Faux humble blazer, fake modest smile, real snake energy. She was standing at the front of the room, laser pointer in hand, pacing like she'd earned the nerves. But it wasn't the posture that got me. It was the slides, my slides. Same branding, same chart colors, even the same stupid typo I hadn't had time to fix. I'd spelled partnership as partnership on slide 3. I'd made a note to myself last night to fix it before presenting. I hadn't shared that version with anyone. And yet, there it was. Displayed proudly on the wall, bold and bullet-pointed under her name. Should have kicked the door in like a SWAT team and screamed bloody theft. I should have thrown my latte at the projector. Instead, I took one slow breath and walked away. Because if you're going to catch a snake, you don't stomp on the grass. You let it slither into the trap. Hey, quick pause. If you're already hooked, take a second to tap that subscribe button and give this story a like. It helps the channel more than you think and lets us keep bringing you wild tales like this one. Okay, back to the drama. I ducked into the stairwell and pulled out my phone with fingers that felt like frozen twigs. Called IT, asked for a login trail check. Just casual, just curious. Had anyone accessed my drive from an unusual location in the last hour? I followed that up with a just-in-case email to legal. Nothing dramatic, just a little heads up. Hi there, think someone may have used my credentials this morning, maybe from the conference room. Not certain, but I'm not in there. Attached are copies of my project timestamps, just in case. By the time I climbed to the 4th floor, my jaw had locked into a smile I use for funerals and performance reviews. Because I knew, deep down, I knew this wasn't just one presentation. This was a pattern. And Aubrey, little Miss Linked in Nepo Baby, was about to find out she picked the wrong PowerPoint to plagiarize. I didn't move for a full 10 seconds. That's a long time to just stand there. Clutching a latte like a weapon, staring through the warped frost of a conference room window, trying to process the exact moment someone decided to skin you alive and wear your work as a trophy. Aubrey's voice bled through the glass, upbeat, confident, fake as her resume. This approach aligns perfectly with their Q3 pain points, she chirped. My words, my pitch. Word for word in some cases, down to the phrasing I'd been proud of. I'd spent 3 weeks finessing the tone so it didn't sound too hungry, too junior. And now she was standing there, poaching it in real time. My jaw clenched. My fingers tightened around the cup, the paper hissing under pressure. I wasn't a violent person, but in that moment, the fantasy of storming in and flinging this latte dead center at her smug little face danced through my mind like a damn ballet. But instead, I stepped back. The cleaner was still at the corner, quietly swabbing baseboards like he hadn't just altered the trajectory of my morning with 12 words. Don't go in yet. Not you forgot something or they need you inside, but that, a warning, clear, purposeful. I approached him slowly as if he might vanish if I walked too fast. Why'd you say that? I asked. He didn't look up. Just shrugged and muttered, saw some things. Figured you'd want to look first. That's all he gave me. I didn't press. Some part of me, primal, bone-deep instinct, already understood. He wasn't guessing. He knew something. And in that weird liminal moment between corporate betrayal and caffeine jitters, I decided to trust a stranger with a mop more than the people in that room. I slid my phone from my coat pocket, fingers moving on muscle memory. I opened my cloud folder and scrolled until I hit the version from 3 nights ago, the one I accidentally exported before correcting the header typo. Partnership rollout, phase 1. Slide 3, there it was. That same typo partnership was now shining on the wall behind Aubrey like a neon scarlet letter. I hadn't shared that version with anyone. Not the VP, not my team, not even my Google Drive, thanks to a sync error I never bothered to fix. That file had lived on my desktop, buried in a folder marked Draft Do Not Use. It should have never seen daylight, which meant one thing: she didn't recreate my work. She stole it, copied it, plucked it from my laptop like a vulture picking flesh, probably while I was in the bathroom or grabbing lunch. And the kicker, she hadn't even bothered to proofread. She thought no one would notice. The arrogance, the entitlement, the amateur hour sloppiness of it all. I leaned back against the cold drywall, mind racing, because this wasn't just about a stolen file. This was about a damn pattern. I started remembering weird moments, times she'd coincidentally had the same phrasing, the same branding styles, the same client intel I'd worked to gather. I'd assumed it was fluke, overlap, hell, maybe even bad luck. But now I saw it for what it was. A calculated pattern of quiet theft dressed up in daddy's connections and fake humility. And I just caught her red-handed with a typo as my smoking gun. I didn't go to HR. I didn't scream. I did what any strategist does when cornered. I started preparing the kill shot. I walked straight past the break room, past my cubicle, past the printer with the jammed tray that had been flashing low cyan for 3 weeks straight. I walked like I had purpose, which, for the first time in a long time, I really did. My fingers were trembling, but not from panic. No, this was something else. That particular brand of tremor you get right before a storm breaks and you realize, not the one stuck under the clouds. You are the storm. I stepped into an unused side office, locked the door behind me, and opened my phone. First stop, IT. I had the direct number saved from back when they botched my second monitor setup and accidentally mirrored my desktop on the CEO's hallway display. That was the week he learned I name my folders Do Not Open, You Nosy Goat. A guy named Derek picked up. His voice still had crumbs of bagel in it. Kelly, he said, chewing. Everything all right? Sort of, I said calmly. I need an emergency credential access report. My login, anything accessed in the last 2 hours. Silence. No chewing now. Okay, that's not a normal request. Something happened, not sure yet, I said, voice flat. But if something did, I'd like to know who was holding the knife. He didn't ask more questions. I heard him typing furiously. While he worked, I opened Outlook. New email. Subject, possible credential misuse, FYI only. I typed slow, deliberate, like every word was a chess piece. Hi there, unclear if this is anything yet, but wanted to flag that I believe someone may have accessed my files without authorization this morning. I noticed content from a local-only backup being used publicly, which was not shared or synced. This may be nothing, but better safe than sorry. Attached, timestamp screenshots, a copy of the original deck file, my own login logs. We'll wait to hear back from IT. Just planting a flag. K attached everything, even the metadata from the file's last open time. Hit send. Then I just sat there, staring at the wall clock, listening to the second hand tick past one lie after another being told in that conference room. I imagined Aubrey's voice, all chipper confidence and borrowed charisma. She didn't even know how much she was overplaying her hand. Don't steal from someone who builds backup plans like spiderwebs. You don't wear someone else's work if you can't walk in their shoes. And I had walked through fire for this project. Late nights, early mornings. I'd babysat internal politics like a toddler with a fork near a socket. I'd massaged the client's shifting concerns through every reorg, every scope tweak. I'd been their human Xanax. And now that we were finally getting in front of the board, Aubrey swoops in with my notes and her $800 flats and expects a standing ovation. My phone vibrated. Derek again. Hey, he said, got something weird, go on. Your account logged into the conference room desktop this morning at 6:42 a.m. I wasn't here at 6:42, I said. I was still in bed and then driving. He was quiet again. I know, it was accessed through the company portal, your credentials. Opened the deck file at 6:47. Uploaded it to the shared network. Nothing else touched, just that. I stared at the floor. Can you confirm the IP? I asked. He did, internal device. Conference room B got a timestamp for logout. 7:08, then it just sat idle. Someone must have walked away without logging out. I clenched my jaw. So she snuck in before the cleaners even started, used my credentials to log into that machine, yanked my work straight off my local folder. She probably plugged in a USB. Bold, stupid, sloppy. Thanks, Derek, I said. Keep this between us for now. No problem, he replied. But good luck. I hung up and stared at the screen. This wasn't the time to confront. Not yet, because if there's one thing I've learned in corporate America, it's this: never interrupt your enemy when they're making your case for you. It started as a hunch. The stolen deck simmered in my inbox like a live grenade, and legal probably debated whether to forward my email or burn the server. I opened an old folder from last quarter, client growth scenarios drafts. Stuff I'd shelved months ago after the VP said we were pivoting away from exploratory proposals. Except that same quarter, Aubrey had magically led an initiative called New Market Infusion Pathways. Board loved it. Client nodded politely. I didn't say a damn word. Now I pulled the files side by side and felt the blood drain from my ears. The formatting was different. The font had been changed from my usual Calibri. Don't judge me. It's clean to her beloved Baskerville, like every paragraph needed to wear pearls and heels. But the bones were mine. Identical flow. Identical research. Even the misquoted stat from the Q1 retail report I'd found behind a paywall and copy-pasted out of spite. He'd fixed the chart's colors but left the number. Like a raccoon wearing lipstick, it still reeked of the trash it crawled out of. I clicked open another folder, tiered rollout templates unused. Buried inside was a phased activation plan I'd built for a pitch that got iced. Except Aubrey had pitched something called Gradual Scope Realignment 3 months ago, which turned into a sponsored pilot we were still running. I pulled up her version. Son of a bitch. She kept the title slide but changed nothing else. She even left my typo in slide 6, complimentary instead of complementary services. 2 stolen projects, minimum, maybe more. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't a single betrayal. This was systemic. She'd been siphoning off pieces of me for months, rewarded just enough to pass as original, but not enough to avoid leaving fingerprints. And no one noticed, or worse, noticed and didn't care. Because who questions the VP's daughter when she shows up with finished work? Who investigates a golden child in a $400 blazer when she just happens to know exactly what the client wants before the team even meets? Who listens to the woman in the corner cube who skips happy hours and doesn't fake laugh at the CEO's jokes? Apparently no one. Until now. A Teams notification popped up. Direct message. From Marcus, former colleague, now slumming it in a side division because he told the VP her crypto plan was financial cosplay. My kinda guy. The message read, "Hey, random, is this your work? Thought it looked familiar." Attached, a slide from last year's efficiency restructure initiative. The one I'd poured hours into, only for it to be shelved when the leadership changed direction. The one Aubrey had supposedly resurrected and reimagined in her first month. Fingers hovered over the keyboard. I replied, "Yeah, mine, from Q2 last year, typing bubble, pause, then thought so. She's been using it in the vendor audit training. Claimed it was built from scratch." I stared at that sentence, felt something crack. All this time I thought I was just unlucky, that my project stalled because of bad timing or shifting priorities, that Aubrey just got there first, that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as sharp as I used to be. But no, she wasn't better, she wasn't faster. She was plugged in and pilfering my work like it was a self-serve buffet. I felt like I'd swallowed glass. Rage sharpened in my chest, cold and surgical. Not fiery, no screaming, just silence and strategy. If I'd walked into that conference room earlier, I would have exploded, and it would have been my badge on the HR desk by lunch. But now I had time. I had evidence. I had witnesses. The thief had no idea I was watching. Let her smile for now. Let her take her bow. Because when the curtain falls, I'll be holding the script she stole and the receipts stapled to her career. I found the one person in legal who still remembered what it felt like to be disposable. Her name was Maya, and she was 3 years into the company, tucked inside an office with a view of the parking garage and a chair that squeaked when you breathed wrong. She wasn't partner track, wasn't flashy. She wore flats on purpose. But when I stepped into her doorway, holding a USB stick and a printout folder thick enough to choke a pelican, she looked up with that same squint I'd seen in the mirror earlier. Suspicion buried under exhaustion, sharpened by history. "You busy?" I asked. "Only emotionally," she said, dropping her pen. "Come in." I shut the door, sat down, and said just one thing. "You ever seen theft dressed up in a pantsuit?" She raised an eyebrow. "Go on." I opened the folder. File, timestamps. Comparison charts. Copies of original drafts alongside the plagiarized versions. Metadata screenshots. It's email confirming a login at 6:42 a.m. from the conference room terminal, while my phone's GPS pinged me at a Starbucks 10 miles away, even included the typo receipts and Slack messages from past projects showing where I'd workshopped the phrases that were later miraculously discovered by Aubrey in her solo brainstorm sessions. By the time I got to the part where Marcus had DM'd me about vendor training slides that smelled suspiciously like my strategy doc from last spring, Maya's eyes had narrowed to knife slits. "Holy shit," she muttered. "Yeah, this is not just a one-off." "Correct. Have digital and anecdotal proof for 3 separate thefts. 4, if you count the vendor deck. 5, if we look at that market mapping initiative she pitched last August. I found my regional data in it this morning." Maya leaned back, rubbing her temples. "Okay, I need a minute." She didn't ask me why I hadn't gone nuclear, why I hadn't burst into the conference room mid-presentation and dragged Aubrey offstage by her hair extensions. She knew, we both did. It's a script for people like us. Lash out, look unstable, get labeled difficult, and end up with a polite exit package and a reputation for being too intense. That's what they count on. Instead, I handed her the USB. "You start the clock," I said. "I'll stay quiet." She nodded, already clicking through files. "We'll open a silent audit, no alerts. Just a chain of custody trace for all assets tagged to her folder since May." "You'll find a lot," I said. "Believe you?" There was a pause. Then she added, "You know this could get messy. I'm counting on it." I left her office and walked slowly back to my desk, every step echoing like it was being recorded. That same cleaner passed me in the hallway again. He didn't say anything this time, just nodded once, like he knew something had shifted. IT emailed again 30 minutes later. Derek confirmed my credentials had also been used on a cloud sync tool at 6:48 a.m. Attached the log. The sync was labeled K. Romero Client Pitch Finalv 2 and had been pushed to Aubrey's folder. "Just thought you'd want to know," he wrote. "Weird how that works." I didn't respond. I just sat there at my desk pretending to scroll through a shared doc, heart thudding beneath a mask of calm. Because now they were documenting it. Not just me, not just my word, but logs, emails, internal systems, machines that don't forget. And somewhere down the hall, Aubrey was probably finishing her kwasa and enjoying the glow of a successful theft, completely unaware that she'd already tripped the wire. They told me to stay quiet for now, so I smiled and waited for the rope to tighten. Applause sounds different when it's meant for your work but not your name. It's muffled, hollow, like clapping underwater or in a dream where your mouth won't move. I stood in the side hallway, behind the frosted glass, watching Aubrey take a gracious little bow like she was accepting a Nobel Prize in professional cosplay. Her laser pointer dangled between her fingers like a cigarette, her tone breezy, smug, manufactured. The board chair leaned forward, nodding with the practiced politeness of someone used to being impressed on schedule. "Brilliant clarity," he said. The VP beamed like a proud stage mom. She really stepped up this quarter. No mention of collaboration, no nod to the team. No trace of the woman who actually bled over that deck for 3 months, while Aubrey was busy getting her headshots retouched for internal comms. I had one hand braced on the wall, nails digging into the drywall, the other gripping my phone like it was the last thing tethering me to logic. The rage wasn't hot, it was glacial. The kind of cold that slows your breathing, that sharpens your vision until you're seeing through people instead of at them. Didn't know I was watching, or maybe they did and just didn't care. I scanned the room like a sniper. Board members, bored but pretending not to be. Couple of VPs checking their phones under the table. One client rep, Jane, I think, leaning forward like she actually gave a damn. Then my eyes caught on Colin, director of strategy. One of the few execs who never laughed at Aubrey's jokes. He sat still, arms crossed, lips pressed in a tight line, not disapproving, not impressed either, just off, watching her too closely. Head tilted, like a man staring at a jigsaw puzzle with one piece jammed and upside down. Aubrey kept talking, and with this tiered outreach model, well, let's just say we'll be turning client churn into client charm. I almost gagged. That line was mine, damn it. I'd thrown it in during a late-night revision sprint as a joke. The fact that she recycled it as her closer made my skin itch. She finished, the VP stood to initiate a round of applause. People clapped. People always clap. They clapped when the vending machine ate my lunch request and spit out 2 hot chocolates. It's reflex. They started wheeling in the catered lunch. Charcuterie trays, shrimp skewers, mini sliders with aioli drizzle that probably cost more per unit than my entire breakfast. I stood there, invisible, watching the celebration of my intellectual kidnapping unfold like a wedding reception for an arsonist. Still no mention of my name. Not a whisper. Not a passing shout out to the team, not a humble nod to the research legwork. Nothing. And here's the thing, I wasn't expecting a parade. But silence from people who knew, who'd seen my deck formats in half a dozen other presentations over the past year, who'd complimented my insights on calls. That silence. That's worse than betrayal. That's complicity. Maya pinged me during the reception. Just a single message. Audit initiated. Confirmed metadata matches. Sit tight. I typed back, watching the show. Curtains about to fall. Colin stood slowly and left the conference room, walking past where I stood. He didn't make eye contact, but I saw his jaw twitch. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to sense that the script felt plagiarized, even if he couldn't name the author. I didn't stop him, didn't pull him aside, didn't need to. Let them have their lukewarm shrimp. Let them toast the queen of counterfeit. The applause wouldn't last. And when it stopped, when the music cut out mid-dance, they'd all be looking at each other, wondering how they missed the warning signs. And I'd be standing there with the receipts, smiling. The room was mid-toast. VP all puffed up, champagne flute in hand, well, sparkling cider, 'cause branding optics, her voice rolling out with that corporate sing-song. And now, I'd like to formally introduce the brilliant mind behind today's pitch. Aubrey stood beside her, hands clasped, ready to beam, ready to collect the credit. The client rep had just leaned forward, smiling like she was about to hand over a check made of gold foil. That's when the door opened. No knock, no polite throat clear. Just a firm click and a push, and in walked Maya from legal, flanked by the company's head of compliance, Robert. He was never in that building unless someone had really messed up. Maya's expression was neutral, but her eyes scanned the room like she was already counting lawsuits. Robert carried a clipboard with the same weight you'd carry a loaded weapon. The VP's mouth hung open. Excuse me. We're in the middle of quick question, Maya said, voice casual in that terrifyingly professional way legal people use when they're about to drop a bomb in the middle of a baby shower. Who logged in under Kelly Romero's credentials this morning? Silence. No one moved. Not a blink, not a shuffle. Just the hiss of the AC and the tiny clink of a fork someone dropped onto a plate. Aubrey's smile froze. Her hands, still folded, began to twitch slightly, thumb pressing hard into her knuckle. Flush that started on her neck rose fast, like a thermometer hitting boil. Her mouth opened, but the first thing out was not a word, it was a breath. A very small, panicked breath. The VP blinked. I'm sorry, what? Maya turned her head, slow and deliberate. We have a confirmed access log showing a login at 6:42 a.m. into the conference room terminal using Miss Romero's credentials, followed by a file transfer. I'm sure there's some mistake, VP said quickly, eyes darting toward Aubrey. Maybe the system glitched. Robert stepped forward and cut in, voice like gravel soaked in law school. The system doesn't glitch and update version histories, metadata timestamps, and cloud sync logs simultaneously. This wasn't a hiccup. This was intentional access. All heads turned to Aubrey. The client rep furrowed her brow. Wait, I'm sorry, Kelly Romero. I thought she wasn't on the team. That's when I stepped in. Oh, applause. No music. Just the sound of my heels clicking softly on the floor as I entered the room with my ID badge still clipped to my hip, my folder of evidence in hand, and a calm so cold it could have iced the charcuterie. Hi, I said, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Did someone say my name? The board chair turned so fast he nearly knocked over his water. Miss Romero, present, I said, and walked straight to the center of the room. Since we're tossing around questions, I've got a few too. Like why my private project folder was accessed without authorization this morning, or why someone uploaded my client deck from a conference room I never entered. Aubrey's voice came out in a breathy stammer. There must be some confusion, I thought. Maybe the files were, you thought what? I said, not raising my voice. That the laptop fairy just leaves perfectly formatted pitch decks in public folders now. Aya held up her clipboard. Just to clarify, we've matched the file hash to Kelly's local desktop folder. It's not a shared document, not emailed, not uploaded. The only possible access path was direct login from her workstation credentials. The VP tried to step in, her voice shrill. Let's not turn this into a witch hunt. Maybe Kelly shared the file and forgot. No, I said, flat. I didn't. Robert cleared his throat. Be conducting an internal investigation immediately. Until then, we ask all parties to refrain from further client interactions, pending clarification. The client rep slowly set down her drink. Aubrey's hands dropped to her sides, fists clenched. The applause was long gone now, and all that filled the air was the sound of a career unraveling. I slid the folder across the glass table like I was laying down a royal flush in a game no one knew I was playing. Inside, every timestamp, every metadata tag, every scrap of digital breadcrumb that proved I wasn't just absent from that terminal at 6:42 a.m. I was 10 miles away, buying a $5 latte and arguing with Siri about road closures. Phone GPS, logged. Starbucks receipt, printed. Wi-Fi pings, documented. My digital alibi was tighter than a drum, and it sang the same chorus over and over. She wasn't there. Someone else was. Robert opened the folder first. Maya didn't even need to look. She'd already memorized the contents. But the board chair leaned in slowly, eyes narrowing, as he scanned the evidence like a priest flipping through sin confessions. Aubrey, to her credit, didn't run, but her posture wilted, spine curling slightly inward, like she could physically shrink beneath the weight of what was coming. I pointed to the highlighted entries. These 5 files, each one created or edited under my credentials. But here's my phone location at those exact times: home, Target, Starbucks, and one particularly glamorous Tuesday afternoon at my dentist. Maya stepped in. To clarify, these files were stored in a secure local-only directory on Miss Romero's laptop. Not shared via Drive, not emailed, not cloud-synced. There's no plausible scenario where anyone would have had access, unless they were sitting at her machine or logged in with her credentials elsewhere. The VP cleared her throat, artificial as a conference room plant. This feels like a simple misunderstanding. Aubrey may have accessed the wrong file or wrong file. I cut in, voice even. She opened a folder buried 3 subdirectories deep in a directory named Do Not Present. That's not a wrong click. That's a deliberate route. Room went quiet again, save for the sound of Robert scribbling something on his clipboard like he was preparing a eulogy. The board chair turned slowly toward the VP, lips tight. Did you authorize your daughter to access internal systems under another employee's credentials? The VP stammered. No, I mean, not directly. I assumed she had access because she was shadowing strategy. Shadowing doesn't include admin rights, Maya snapped. Shadowing doesn't explain version histories of projects Kelly never uploaded, showing up in Aubrey's deliverables as far back as last quarter. Aubrey finally spoke, voice small. I thought it was shared. I didn't mean to plagiarize, I said quietly. To take my work, my research, my late nights, and wrap them in your silk scarf and smile like you wrote it in a dream. She didn't respond, because there was no response to that. Not when the walls were closing in. The lights were brighter than they'd ever been before. One of the board members, a guy from operations, low profile, sharp memory, leaned toward another exec and muttered, just loud enough to carry, "This wasn't the first time, was it?" The words hung there, thick and damning. The board chair looked at the VP like a parent who just found out their kid had been shoplifting. We'll continue this discussion in a closed session. Which, in board speak, is the corporate version of being told to pack your desk. The VP opened her mouth again, but the chair raised a hand, silencing her. We'll be reviewing all strategy submissions from the past year. All of them. Aubrey's lip trembled. I just stood there, calm and composed, while the house of cards they built on my back finally started to collapse. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was holding it up alone. By 3 o'clock, catered lunch was cold and untouched, except for a few brave shrimp skewers clinging to dignity on limp napkins. The conference room, once full of clapping and curated smiles, had gone silent, like someone pulled the plug on a reality show mid-season. I watched from my desk as HR flanked Aubrey on either side, one of them clutching a manila envelope, the other holding her company-issued laptop like it might bite. She kept her eyes low, ears either already cried or carefully stored for more sympathetic audience. There was no grand speech. No, this isn't fair, or you'll regret this. Just the soft click of her heels and the sound of her privilege being quietly rolled out the door on the wheels of a company-issued laptop bag. The VP didn't get an escort. She got an email. I watched her expression shift in real time as she read it, first confusion, then panic. That professional calm people paste on when they're drowning in a sea of their own bad decisions. She didn't storm out. She just stood up, nodded once to no one in particular, and left her office door swinging behind her. No goodbye, no defense. Just the exit of someone who finally realized the family name didn't come with an immunity clause. A few minutes later, my inbox pinged. Subject: Board request strategic review. I walked in without knocking. We're seated, scattered, but alert, that peculiar boardroom energy somewhere between a promotion and a firing squad. The board chair motioned to the seat across from him. I sat, still composed, though my pulse was knocking like a drummer behind my ribs. He didn't waste time. Miss Romero, first, let me apologize. This should never have happened. I nodded once. Thank you. We've reviewed the evidence. Legal has completed the audit. Your documentation was thorough. Word made me smile, just barely. I try. You are being reinstated immediately as the lead on the Fortune 100 pilot. Effective today. Understood. He exchanged a glance with the woman beside him, SVP of Strategy. She leaned in. We'd also like to discuss fast-tracking your promotion. We've needed someone permanent in Director of Strategic Growth for a while. After this, we know who that should be. I felt it then, not vindication, not joy, just a deep, anchored quiet. Like something had been leveled inside me. Not rebuilt yet, but cleared. I'd be honored, I said. They gave me the formalities, HR forms, a new office assignment. A real one this time, with a door that locked and a view that didn't include the parking garage. But before I went there, I did something else. I walked back to conference room B. The air still held a trace of cologne and embarrassment. Aubrey's handouts had been cleared. Coffee cup was gone. It was just me now, and the projector, and the seat where my name had never been spoken. I plugged in my laptop. No fanfare, no crowd, just the click of a cable and the quiet hum of my desktop screen lighting up exactly where it should have been that morning. I didn't need applause. The work would speak. And just before I clicked into the deck, I saw movement in the hallway. That cleaner, the one who started all this, stood leaning on his mop. Watching, he didn't smile, just gave a slow, deliberate nod. I returned it. Thank you, I said, and got to work. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.